the rule of three, where when you're doing a punchline, you do one's great, two's okay, three is great. Anything over three and it's like, doesn't work, it's over, you're done.
When I wrote my book, I remember thinking, you're either an author or you're not. I don't know how you teach somebody to write a book. And I think it's the same kind of thing with comedy, like this idea that either you're funny or you're not. And so I'm not funny, so I'm not going to try that, And so it was interesting to listen to some of the little tips that people would bring out, like learning about timing and learning to pause and learning, that even in your first book, you talked about that you have a chapter on humor in there and you talk about like how you start to find the funniest in things. Do you want to share a little bit about that? Because it was something it kind of piqued my interest when when we first started talking about having on my podcast. But to be honest, I was like, I had that idea. I thought either you're funny or you're not. I can't even imagine like trying that. Like, how would I come up with jokes, And so can you talk a little bit about what that's like and what you teach people?
Sure. First, you mentioned laughter. I can remember the first time I laughed. I truly laughed after years and years and years. And it was just so amazing that I realized I laughed and it felt good. And then I realized that I laughed. So that's so true. I relate to that. I found I can teach anybody to do stand-up comedy. I can teach. It's not a matter of being funny or not being funny. Sometimes the people who think they're the funniest have the hardest time with class. So there's humor in your life. The more challenges you have, the more material there is for humor. And people in my class, people in the class have so much material. So finding the humor and helping people find it. And then what I would do is in comedy, like in jokes, it's as few words as possible because you get more words, a word that doesn't have to be there and it's distracting. It can get down to syllables. If you got a 3-syllable word and you find one 2-syllable word that can replace it, you do it. So there's the few words possible and the rule of three, where when you're doing a punchline, you do one's great, two's okay, three is great. Anything over three and it's like, doesn't work, it's over, you're done. So, there are things. And so I could teach people those things, teach them how to write jokes, teach them the basics of writing jokes, the formula, the structure. And then to, teach timing. It's not like you have it or you don't, you can learn it. And, people would be telling jokes in class and they'd go too fast. And so I'd say, take a beat. Take a breath. Just take one beat. Take one beat here or 2 beats here, and then tell the punchline. Because you don't run along and then tell a punchline and then tell the next joke, and people are going, whatever's happening. So the timing. And then I had a fellow in the class, Michael, and when he came to class, he was whispering. That's all I could do. He was inside whatever, he was whispering. He couldn't talk out loud. He was whispering. But he came to class. His mom brought him to class. And so he was in class and he was whispering and he started having fun, but he was still whispering. So I had him, when we go home and go into the bathroom and talk loud. And I said, if you think you're yelling, that's just right. And so he went into the bathroom and talked. And then the next week he came and he was talking a little louder. And then the next week I had him go into the garage and I had him yelling his jokes. I said, yell them as loud as you can, yell them. And so he did, and he came into the next class and he was talking. And then we came to the performance and he stood at the microphone. And it's interesting, you've got the mic, and we use the stand-up mic. And I had people, touch the base of the mic with your toes, and then you're close enough to the mic. And then talk loud, but he got up there at the show and he put his toes up to the mic and he started telling his jokes and he was laugh out loud funny. And it was such a really cool experience to see Michael do that. realizing that he came in and he couldn't talk above a whisper. And then to see him up on stage, his family was there and they cried. And that was just really a cool experience. And that's just one of them. I can teach anybody how to write jokes. I can teach anybody how to do stand-up comedy. One of the folks that have a hard time are people that are literal, because the setup is based in reality. Like my depression jokes or my suicide joke, it's based in reality. But then the creative part comes after that. And so we'd be in class and I'd have somebody and we'd have the setup and then we'd go creative on the punchline and they'd say, but that's not what happened. That's not true. I was like, okay, we had to work through that. Yeah. So I can teach. I taught stand-up comedy to folks at the Oregon State Hospital. They were in there. They committed crimes. So they were criminally insane. So I could say I taught stand-up comedy to the criminally insane. But I could teach anybody. You don't have to be funny. It's really helpful if you're not funny, and it's creative. I had a hard time after teaching a lot of classes. It's a lot of work. I mean, the classes would be 2 hours, and so we'd do that as a group, and then I'd spend time helping to craft jokes and come up with setups and making them better and all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot of work. It took a lot of energy, and so I needed to take my break. But you mentioned suicidal ideation. And one of my favorite jokes is about suicide. And suicide's never funny, and except when it is. When I was really down, I was really having a really hard time, I decided to end it all. So I went up into the bathroom and I took a bunch of pills. Afterwards, I called my wife for help. She said there are more pills under the sink.
Yeah.
And the people that appreciate that joke most are the people that have had the suicide ideation.
Yeah.
Or people that have even had attempts, and family members, they take a breath and they don't know what to do, and then they start laughing.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody say that you can't do that, you can't say that, that's one of people's favorite jokes because it goes somewhere where you're not going to go.
Yeah.
And that's part of the class. We go places, we go everywhere. And, the other thing is it was clean humor. It was clean.
Yeah.
No sex, no religion, and no swear words. It's harder to do that. It's harder to be creative.
Yeah.
And oftentimes dropping the F-bomb or whatever, it's easy, and it's a lot harder to be creative and to be funny and to do. One of the descriptions of the humor for one of our shows, we sold out Helium Comedy Club. We had 185 people there, and there was a critic there, and they said, it's laugh out loud funny, but it's also clever and intelligent and emotional. And that was so cool to read that and say, that's it. So I can teach anybody how to write jokes, how to tell jokes, how to do stand-up comedy. I had one fellow, it's great. He, Martin, he's in the book. He had autism, and anyway, I won't go all into his story, but afterwards he performed, and his family thought he could never ever do that. A week later, I saw his dad, and his dad came up to me and he said, since Martin's taking the class, he's, you created a smartass. And I said, yeah, but he's a smartass with timing.
I love his autism, the autism for dummies joke.
Oh, it's great.
Can you tell that one? I don't want to mess it up.
I don't know if I can remember it all and mess it up. What's the setup? The setup. Some people think that people with autism are dumb. Let's see.
Wasn't it something like he was writing a book, Autism for Dummies, but only a few people bought it because there aren't very many dumb autistic people?
Yeah, there we go. I was writing a book. Yeah, Autism for Dummies, but nobody read the book because there aren't any dumb people with autism.
Yeah.
So So, that's great. He's making jokes about his autism, and he wrote a lot of his material. And when we tell the jokes, a lot of the people have notes up on stage because, it's hard to memorize.
Yeah.
So they had notes, but Martin memorized his whole set, got up there and did his thing. And it was truly amazing. Another one of his jokes was that if you're going to borrow money, always borrow it from a pessimist, because they never want to get it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never expect to get it back. So that was one of his jokes.